Welcome back to the 365 Driven podcast. Today, we've got an expert in building memberships and subscriptions for your business. He's been doing this for several years. He's created apps and plugins for WordPress to get these things accomplished. And thousands of clients later, he's helped these people build these different memberships and subscription models for their business. Stu McLaren, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Super great to be here.
So, before we get into understanding the membership and subscription business model, which is a very unique business model on its own, I want to know the background on your entrepreneurial journey. It seems like you started something in 2008. What created that for you?
Well, I had a really successful consulting business, and it was fulfilling all of my entrepreneurial dreams. Essentially, I graduated with a business degree, but I quickly realized I did not want to go into corporate America or Canada on my end. I didn't want to, be stuck at a cubicle. I didn't want to be told when I could and couldn't go on vacation. So I was pretty clear about what I didn't want, but I did not know what I wanted to do in terms of the type of business. But it eventually led me to a consulting business, and everything was going great. I was earning mid six figures and was tickled pink with the direction, except for the fact that when I got married to my lovely wife Amy, I quickly started to have like this realization, because we were talking about starting a family, and I was working a lot. I was,
Mm.
working early in the morning, late till late at night. And my schedule, although it was the entrepreneurial dream, my schedule was my client's schedule. When my clients were doing promotions, I was on call. And so my calendar was not driven by what I wanted to do. It was driven by, what my clients were wanting to do. And then the other thing I realized was that the only way to grow that business was to give more of my time, and I didn't have any more time to give. So I was in this place of contemplation, and I was just like, something's got to change, because, here I am. I just got married. We're talking about starting a family. And if I wanted to be a present father and a present husband, like, something had to give. So that began my journey of just exploring different business models. And a mentor of mine eventually turned me on to memberships, and that began the second chapter, so to speak, of my entrepreneurial career.
You know, Looking at the time relevance, 2008, that's really when Instagram was kicking off. Facebook was still kind of stuck in the university phase. WordPress was around for a longer time than that, and you built this plugin. So, what is it that attracted you to the community aspect of it? Were you leading different communities on your own before you took it to the digital space, or things like that?
No, you know, it was that conversation with my mentor. He basically said, I came to him and I was like, man, what do I do? Like, I've got this great business. I don't want to just like let it go. But at
Yeah.
the same time, like, I also realize I can see the writings on the wall. Like, this is not the direction I want to head. And he said, well, look, he said, you're getting hired because you're really good at this one area. Instead of doing it for clients, why don't you teach others how to do it for themselves? And he said, you could do that inside of a membership where people are paying you on a monthly basis, and you're teaching not one to one, but one to many. And I was like, man, that sounds amazing. So I started down that path. And as you said, 2008, the technology then was not what it is today. Let's
Yeah.
just say that. So,
Yep.
I was like head over, way over my head, sorry, in things like HT access files and server settings. And dude, it was like way above my pay grade.
WordPress was really sketchy back then. We always had to
Oh,
do all these updates, and there was so many templates that you would try. I built a lot of WordPress websites for clients back then, and things were always crashing because the templates would expire or they go out of business. Like you said, the Wild
or,
West.
or one plugin would conflict with another
Oh
plugin,
man, you're giving me
or they,
PTSD. I'm thinking
oh,
about
dude,
that
and then they
now.
do a cert like a wholesale change, and it would screw everything. It was just,
Yep.
yeah, that was. And so, like, I'm not super technical. So, that was like, really challenging for me. So, anyways, I was talking to a friend of mine, and I was moaning and groaning about this. And I was just like, I just want to be able to teach. That's all I want to be able to do. I don't want to mess with this stuff. And he said, well, why don't you create your own membership solution? And at that point, I got to be honest, like, I was like, legit, is he even listening to what I'm saying? Like, I'm sitting here telling him that I'm having trouble with the tech, and he's suggesting that I go and create my own tech solution. I was like, dude, no. I said, like, I can't do that. I'm not technical. I'm not a programmer. And he's just like, well, I have a programmer that I work closely with. Why don't we team up and let's create something together? So we did. And
Yeah.
ultimately, that became the first software company that we launched, and it was called Wishlist Member. And it went on to become the world's #1 membership platform for WordPress. It was just like right product, right time.
Yeah.
It just took off. And before I sold my shares in that company 6 years later, we were powering over 70,000 online communities and memberships. And that's really where I learned like what works and what doesn't when it comes to membership sites.
When you're looking at these membership apps, I mean, there's a lot of them out there now.
Mm.
What was it about Wishlist Member that had the stickiness? What made people keep using it and enjoy it?
Like I said, I think we were graced with timing.
Just early, you're early to the game, huh?
We were. It was like I said, right product, right time, and we had a solution that was more user friendly than
Okay.
what was available at that time. What was available at that time was very technical. That's what was driving my initial frustration. Was just like, I couldn't figure it out. And if you can't figure it out, then you can't do the thing. So we just basically created a user friendly way for people to be able to get started. Now, the reason that I sold my shares was back to the earlier part of our conversation, which was I just got so frustrated with the WordPress world. Like,
Mm.
it was so fickle and it was super stressful because if WordPress released an update, it would impact our clients. And then that would mean we've got 70,000 online communities and memberships saying, hey, what the heck? This isn't working. And so we were never in control of that environment. And that just drove me bonkers. And it was super stressful. So, from that perspective, that's ultimately why I sold. And then that's really what drove me to the solution that we have today, which is membership.io, which is a server based, solution. And we're in control of that, which, it's really good for the stress levels.
Yeah, from a risk perspective, I always had my doubts about developing a plugin for WordPress for those reasons. And you also feel sort of like a parasite, stuck to the host of WordPress, and your business only exists if WordPress is functioning properly. And that always scared me.
Yeah, and it's playing out in real time right now. There's a big server company called WP Engine, and
Yeah,
they're
a lot of
like in this
lawsuits going on.
big
Yeah,
legal battle. Yeah, and
yeah,
they've got like millions of users, that
yeah.
use WP Engine, and WordPress made a decision that wasn't in favor of them, and so now you got this huge legal conflict, and that was what I was wanting to get out of as quickly as possible.
So was there any horror stories of you getting the call at 3 a.m. that the thing was down and you had to go fix it? And like I said, all these people are flooding your inbox.
Yeah, we there's a really great story actually. So there was a time, and we were still fairly small at this point. Like, we had I think there was 5 of us on the team, um and I'm not a programmer. My business partner's not a programmer. We had like
Mm.
one lead programmer. His name was Mike, and he was super talented. And then we had a customer service as well. And anyway, we're powering at this point probably around 20,000 online communities and memberships. And WordPress was ticking along, and momentum was building. We hadn't really experienced like the frustration that we're talking about. And so anyway, momentum is building, things are going good, and our programmer Mike, we had developed really friendships and stuff, and he came to us and he said, guys, I just got to be straight up with you. I've been really inspired by what we've created together, and I want to go and create my own
Oh, no.
products and stuff. And we're like, oh gosh, no. So he gave us a few weeks notice, which was we're super grateful for, and we just went on a hiring binge. We ended up hiring 6 different people to replace Mike.
Wow.
And
He was a superhero then.
oh, dude, he was incredible. And then so shortly after that, WordPress makes an update. So Mike has now gone. We've got 6 new programmers. WordPress makes this huge update. And dude, it was just like, what hit the fan. And everything was just like crashing, and support's just getting hammered. And these people's businesses depended on our solution. So
That's
like
right.
there was a lot at stake here. So we were working around the clock trying to figure it out. And, our new programmers were still just kind of getting familiar with the product itself. It was an absolute nightmare. And long story short, I said to my business partner, Tracy, I said, man, we got to get Mike back, And he's like, what do you mean? I said, legit, we've got to get Mike back because, we're underwater right now. And he's like, what are you suggesting? I said, I think we should go to Mike and pitch him on becoming a partner in the
Yeah.
business.
Yeah.
And he's like, what? And he's like, come on. And I said, no, dude, I'm legit. I'm like, I said, you're not a technical co-founder. I'm not a technical co-founder. Like, we need somebody who's got skin in the game. So we had agreed to fly and go see Mike. And we asked him if he would be open to just doing like a couple weeks of consulting just to get us so our heads above water and try to get us back on
Get
track.
them
And
to the table really, like, slowly.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So he agreed. We both fly over there, and I'll never forget this conversation. It was like one of those moments when he sorry, excuse me 1 second. Okay. Okay, sorry. Kids coming home. So we fly, we meet with him, and then he says, so I start asking him, I said, so Mike, tell me, like, how's business going? And he said, well, I gotta be honest with you. It's a little more difficult than I initially anticipated. Secretly, is like he's telling me this. I'm like, this is exactly like, not good for him, like, but good, because hopefully it'll, pan out. And so I said, what do you mean? He's like, well, I just thought I'd be able to like spend my time programming, but now I'm like setting business up and I'm having to worry about marketing and doing all
He
this.
saw the real side of business.
Yeah,
Not
exactly.
what he wanted to do.
Exactly. So then I said to him, I'm like, well, Mike, um, I've got something I want to share with you. And so I went in and I pitched him on the idea of like coming back and having a piece of the company. And, as I'm talking, like the smile on his face just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And right away he said, I'm in. And like my business partner, Tracy, and I are like, whew, thank goodness for that. And then he says to me, can I be honest with you guys? And I was like, well, dude, I hope so. Like, we're partners now. And he said, well, right before I came to this meeting, my wife suggested that I ask for my job back.
Oh.
I said, interesting. I said, well, here's what you're going to do, Mike. You're going to go back to your wife and you're going to say, honey, I took you up on your advice. And I not only convinced them that I should get my job back, but I convinced them that I should be a partner in the business. I said, do that, buddy. And you're going to have the best day you've had in months.
Yeah, that's good.
But Mike came back, and then what we ended up doing from there was Mike built a development team, and that began to relieve the pressure on just him and also like us as a company. And yeah, it was one of those crazy moments.
I love those stories, especially when things work out and, keeping valuable talent. That's a good lesson there for the business owners. A lot of the listeners or viewers of this have some superstars in the ranks, and
Mm.
they're still got this mindset that I'm only paying market value for this position. But they don't realize that person's worth, like you said, 6 people had to replace this gentleman.
And we still weren't up to par with six,
Yeah.
like,
So
yeah.
you need to think like the listeners, like I want you to think about if you have a superstar or more in your organization, ask yourself what you would pay to keep them if they were gone. If they were to leave and it greatly affected your business, like what would you pay in that moment to keep those people? That's probably the number that pops in your head is what you probably should be paying them right now to keep them.
Yeah, and to your point, like oftentimes as business owners, we just don't think of the vulnerabilities that we face. Like that was one. Like we got exposed in that moment. Like
Yeah.
our business was dependent on one particular person, and without that one person, we were in trouble. And so that was a huge vulnerability. But even if you fast forward to like today's day and age, there's a lot of businesses who have been exposed recently. Like during COVID, like that. Who would have ever imagined that like governments would say you can't go in stores, you
Yeah.
cannot, like nobody would ever think that.
Your
But
business is not a valid business.
yeah, and there
Yeah.
was like legit overnight like businesses that were shut down.
Yep.
Like I got a but great buddy of mine, he was in my wedding, who is a owner of a restaurant, and
Oh,
like he was just barely scraping by. Like he was on the brink of bankruptcy, like it was just, it took everything to keep that business alive. But even today, like, a few weeks ago, TikTok was on the
yeah, yeah,
verge of being banned. And
oh
like,
yeah,
boom, millions of creators who've built their businesses like overnight. Or like recently, the US government with the tax tariffs, like
yep,
up here in Canada, like all these businesses are panicking. It's just
yep.
like, well, what does that mean? And this is my point, is like every business has vulnerabilities. We just may not be aware of it until that moment. So the more you can certainly safeguard yourself and, and shore up those vulnerabilities in advance, the better.
Those TikTokers should probably listen to this episode when we get into your expertise here, because I have a lot of friends that are TikTok creators, and they were all belly aching that day that it was down. It was down a full day, right?
Yeah,
And they were all boohooing about how much money they were losing and things like that. And I have that empathy. I understand that. But the reality is that they've been told for about 4 years now that there was a risk of it getting banned, and they did nothing to get people off of that platform. Like, they
it's
did
true,
not
man.
take them off. They did not build email lists. They did not build memberships. They just assumed like, that's just banter.
Yeah, and I mean, that's what I mean, like, in a single decision that you are not in control of in many
Yep.
cases, like your business, is in a tremendously vulnerable state. And so, we learned that the hard way. Our
Yep.
constraint was, our business being dependent on one person. And I learned a lesson, like, when you're growing a business, you can't have any one area of your business dependent on one person. I mean, in the beginning, for sure, like, often it's going to be that way. But as you grow, the more that you can, alleviate that pressure and have crossover skills with your team, the less you're dependent on any one person.
Yeah, we even from a clientele base, we always recommend that you no one client is more than 20% of your revenue, because if
Yeah,
you lose one, you can still have 80% of your revenue, which kind of gets you by. But if you have a one client that is bigger than 20% of your revenue, that's a huge financial risk.
it's a great point. Yeah, whether it's like employees or clients or other or suppliers,
Oh
like that
yeah.
was another big thing during COVID. Like a lot of the supply chains got held up, and that created a backlog for a lot of businesses. And yeah, we all have vulnerabilities. It's just a matter of are we ready when they get exposed.
So it's 2014 and you decide to exit that business and go do something else. Was there some downtime in there, or soul searching? Like, what led you to do the next thing?
Yeah, interesting. Like there was a moment when I knew I wanted to sell the business,
Mm.
and because on paper, like everything was great. Like it was a multi-million-dollar a year business. My business partner was a great friend, like still is. We had a great team, but like I said, there were just parts of the business that were frustrating for me. Like the dependency on WordPress was one of them that was really, really stressful. And I just felt like there was something else. I didn't know what that was, and it was a vulnerable place to be. But there was a moment though. I had read a couple books. One of them was Essentialism
Yep.
by Greg McEwen.
Good
Great
book.
book.
Great book.
Second book was The One Thing
Oh yeah.
by Gary Keller and Jay Papasan. And those books were swirling around in my head,
Great.
and then a friend and mentor, Michael Hyatt, he I had watched him deliver a great presentation at an event, and he was talking about, building a legacy, and stuff like that. So that was all swirling in my head. And so when that was all factored in, we went to like a family summer camp. It was my wife and my daughter and I at the time. My daughter, I think she was 4 at the time. So we go to this summer camp, and it's out in the middle of nowhere. We're literally on an island, and the cabin that we're staying in has got like this tin roof. So I'm lying in a bed beside my wife. My daughter's in another bed in the same cabin, and it is pouring rain. And so I wake up in the middle of the night. It was like 2 a.m. and the rain is just hitting that tin roof, and it's just I'm like I can't go to sleep anymore, and I can't like turn on a light to go read a book or something because I'm lying beside my wife and my daughter's just over there. And so I was just like lying there in darkness with my thoughts. And Tony, that's a very scary place to be. So, um, uh, and my wife wakes up and she could see that I'm just like wrestling with something. And she says, are you all right? And I said, yeah, I think I've made a big decision. And she said, well, what is it? I said, I think I'm gonna sell my business.
Mhm.
And my wife, she's a very calm, amazing woman, and she just held space for me for a second, and she just said, well, tell me why. So then I just like verbally vomited all the stuff that was going on in my head, and it was just unloaded on her, and
Yeah.
she just processed it. And then at the end of it, she just basically said, well, look, she said, I believe in you, so if this is the next right step, then let's go for it. And that was a really scary place, man, because at that point, like, I had all kinds of fears and doubts immediately rush through my mind, which was like, is this business a one-hit wonder? Will
Yeah.
I be able to repeat my success? Will people still want to do business with me? Like, am I putting my family in financial jeopardy? Like, all of those fears and just came rushing through.
We always go to the
Well,
worst. We always go to the worst of that
oh,
too. It's never the good side of those thoughts,
no,
you
it's
know?
always the worst.
Yeah.
And yeah, and so I wrestled with it, but then ultimately I decided to do it, and I didn't know what the next thing was. Fortunately for me, my good friend Michael Hyatt, we ended up like forming a partnership, and I
Mhm.
was basically helping him launch a membership, and that went tremendously well. It transformed his business, and then he brought me in as a partner on a bunch of other projects, and that kind of bridged the gap
Yeah.
from 2014 to 2016. And then my wife and my brother-in-law ultimately were the ones that kept nudging me and encouraging me to go out and start teaching all that I had learned about memberships to others. And so in 2016, we started the business that we have today. And since then, we've now taught more than 20,000 plus people how to launch, grow, and scale their memberships.
So Michael Hyatt's a good example we can start from. Very successful entrepreneur. He had a pretty good audience as long as I've known that name,
Yep.
especially in that time period. You came in on the team to try to be more like the technical lead to build his membership. So explain maybe what his business was lacking, and most of your clients nowadays are lacking the same thing, so we can understand why it matters to consider having a membership.
Yeah, in Michael's case, he was a thought leader. Like, he had
Mhm.
just finished writing his, at that time, his most latest book, which was called Platform: Get Noticed in a Noisy World. And his whole business was him as a traveling around the
Speaker.
country as a
Yeah,
speaker. Yeah.
yeah.
So he would speak 30 to 40 times a year. So you had a day on the front, a day on the back for travel. That
Mhm.
meant that he was gone over 100 days a year.
Yeah.
So when a mutual friend introduced us and we were just chatting, and I asked him the question, I said, what's the biggest challenge you've got in your business? And he said, Stu, I love what I get to do, and I love who I get to serve. He said, but I'm tired. Like, I just want to be home with my wife, Gail, my 5 daughters, and my grandkids.
Mhm.
And I said to him, I'm like, well, I can help. And so that's when we came together. And basically, we took the ideas from his book and then we created a membership around it. Because at the end of the day, like, even for authors, for speakers, for anybody that's teaching on TikTok or Instagram or YouTube, or people writing for LinkedIn, like, you can deliver the greatest piece of information, but people are still going to have questions. People are still going to need support in implementing it. Knowing what to do and how to do it is one part of the puzzle, but actually getting the result with what you're learning, that's something totally different. And the membership bridges that gap. And so ultimately, that's what we did, for Michael. And in the first week, we welcomed 1,100 members.
That's
By
huge.
the end of
That's huge. That's an amazing result.
Huge. It was like a game changer for him. And then after year one, it was 2,500. Year two, it was 4,500. Year three, it grown to 6,000. It was a multi-million-dollar a year membership. And that meant we took him from being on the road over 100 days a year down to less than 15. And he
Yeah.
was making more and working less. And so it was a great example of how to add leverage in the business. He had a great product. It was just the wrong business model.
Yeah.
And that was the case, even if you look back on my career, like when I had the consulting business, great product, wrong business model. And so a lot of the times businesses they have great products, but they have a business model that creates built-in limitations. Like you can only work with so many clients. You're
Yeah.
only available, so many days a week, or you're hoping that clients come back and buy from you again versus like knowing with certainty that they will. And so that was a moment after then that I realized like everything that I had learned being behind the scenes, serving tens of thousands of memberships, like I had learned what worked. And so when we applied it to Michael's, there was a clear cut, obvious trajectory. And I was like, I can help more people do this. And that's what led us to where we are today.
We're just really embracing technology to create these kind of business models. I mean, that's really kind of the basis of what we've been talking about. And for Michael to have 6,000 members, that's tremendous reach. Think about as a personal public speaker that's traveling on the road. You said, 300 days or 100 days a year, right?
Yeah,
That's a stadium with 6,000 people is a giant stadium. That's maybe, I don't know, college basketball stadium size. That's a pretty big turnout to have that in your inbox every day. And, people tend to not visualize like our video views and our downloads for a podcast and things like those are humans, and that's the reach that you have. And, so we can get invited to some of these stages. And if there's only 10 people or 20 people attending, you and I can both fire up our microphones, get on our podcast, and broadcast to thousands of people. So
totally.
it's an insane leverage just from the technology.
And those were monthly paying customers.
Yeah.
So like every business traditionally at the start of the month has to go and find new customers
Yep.
or hope that those customers are going to come back. See, what Michael had there was 6,000 customers at the beginning of every month were paying him again and then again and again. And it just changes the whole dynamic of running a business, because now you can invest in your marketing, you can invest in your team with confidence, like not worried about if the promotion's going to work or if a client is going to stay or not stay. Like you don't have that same fear. You operate from a completely different place of confidence when you've got that recurring revenue. And that's why so many businesses are shifting and moving to a subscription
Yeah.
and membership model. And if we just look around, like of all of our favorite services, like whether it's software or
Yeah.
Netflix or Amazon Prime
And
or
we're using
Spotify,
StreamYard right now. That's another paid app.
StreamYard,
Yeah.
exactly, like right, they've shifted to a subscription model, and it's for good reason, and it's because it creates more stability and predictability.
So I want to throw some objections at you that you no doubt have heard because you're the pro at this. Somebody's listening to this. I'll go, yeah, that sounds great, but I'm not Michael Hyatt. I'm not successful. I
Mm.
don't have an audience. I don't even have a big following. How is this going to work for me?
Well, here's the good news. There are so many examples in our community of people who don't have big audiences, don't have tens of thousands of followers, don't even have thousands of followers, because you can launch a membership with just a couple hundred people. Now, that could be a couple hundred people on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube subscribers, podcast listeners, email list, past clients. And because in the beginning, you don't need a lot of people. What you're trying to do in the beginning is you're trying to work with a group of people to get a sense of how to best serve them in the journey of going from where they are to where they want to be. And so I think of Jennifer Chamberlain as an example. So she was a 50-something grandma, and she, in her own perspective, never ever considered herself a businesswoman. But she loved to paint, and she wanted to share and teach other women her age how to tap into that creativity that they once maybe had decades ago.
Cool.
So she didn't have a big audience. She didn't have tens of thousands or thousands, but she had a few hundred people who were following what she'd post about what she was painting and so forth. So she did what we call a founding member launch, and I'd love to say that she welcomed thousands of members right out of the gate. No,
No.
no,
Yeah.
she welcomed 20
Hey.
founding members. And that was the beginning. And so that served as the starting point, and she worked with those women. She figured out how she could best serve those women. By the end of year 1, she had grown that membership to 100 members. So
That's
now
awesome.
she's like she's generating some significant revenue now. And then by the end of year 2, she had doubled that and had grown it to 200 members. So now it's like a full-time gig, like full on full-time gig. But then year 3, there was like a switch, because before she never considered herself a businesswoman. Now she's just like, I'm running a business. Like, it was like an identity change.
Mm.
And she hit her inflection point. She went from 200 members to more than 2,000 plus
Oh my
members.
gosh.
And that's what took it to a $1 million membership. And there are so many incredible examples of people in all kinds of markets, from photography and calligraphy to fitness, finance, music, art, health, dog training. We even have Holly George in our community. She is a stay-at-home mom whose husband's in the military. And so he's away a lot, but she's got young kids. So she wanted to get and earn some extra money, but couldn't go get a full-time job because she's at home with the kids. But she had a passion for balloon animals, making balloon animals.
Yeah, like a
And
clown.
so, yeah, so she started a membership. It's a 6-figure membership. She's got thousands of members. The membership's called the Twisterhood. So, but my point is just like, there is so much opportunity to be able to serve a group of people with your passions, your expertise, things that you love. There's ways to add it on to existing businesses, whether it's a product-based business, service-based, knowledge-based, or community-based.
Mhm.
There's so many different ways that you can add a membership, but that recurring revenue as a business owner is like a godsend. It just transforms the way in which you operate that business.
So the next objection you probably hear is, well, if let's use the twisting balloons example. Why can't I just go to YouTube or use AI and teach me how to do that? Why would I join a community? That's probably the next objection. Somebody's in their mind, like, why would they hire
Totally.
me?
Yeah, valid. Listen. Okay, so we've all been there. We've all been there where we've wanted to learn something and we went down the rabbit hole of jumping on YouTube. I'll give you a good example. So right now I'm in my home office studio, and I've got a screen here, a screen here. I've got you up here, on this teleprompter. I've got lights and lights and lights and microphones up here. Like, it's like the whole thing. So, but when I was setting this up, I didn't know what I was doing. So, I go on YouTube and I just type in, like home, home video studio,
Yep.
and boom, there's like tons of videos. So I'm a good student. I, start watching, I'm taking notes, and then that leads me to the next video, and I'm taking notes, and that leads me to the next video. And everybody's saying something different.
That's right.
Some people are saying this microphone, some people are saying that lights, some people are saying like this setup, no, that setup's good. I like came out of my, rabbit hole, and it was like 3.5 hours had gone by, and I'm looking at all my notes, and I still don't know what to do. And so out of my frustration, I go on our Facebook group, and I was just like, does anybody know somebody that I could talk to that could walk me through what I should be buying and how to set it up? And right away, I'll never forget Dana Abraham. She's like, oh, you just need to go to livestreamingpros.com. They'll walk you through the whole thing. I go there. It's $100 a month membership. I don't even blink. I immediately sign up, because there's a big difference between like having access to the information,
That's it.
even knowing what to do and how to do it. There's a big difference between that and being supported in the implementation of that information. So back to your question, why would somebody pay for a membership when they can access information for free? It's because knowing the information is not enough. Like, what a membership does is it bridges that gap between knowing the information and actually getting the result. So I could watch YouTube videos about becoming an elite swimmer, but I'm never actually going to become an elite swimmer until I get in the pool. And then I'm going to become an elite swimmer when I have a coach that's saying, hey, Stu, butt down. Hey, Stu, keep your, reach out. Like, I need somebody coaching me through that process and supporting me in that. And that's what a membership does, is it bridges that gap.
I love that response. And what you did is you just really gave a great story breaking down the marketing psychology that you and I, we're marketers. We understand the marketing psychology. That's why our mentors that have taught us is saying, hey, you can give your best content. You can teach the best things you want in a YouTube video and put it on your blog. And you can absolutely give your best secrets away on your content. I do that. I know that you do as well.
Yeah.
But again, it creates that overwhelm you just described, where it's like a flood of information. And people that are maybe a little bit further along in the journey of whatever they're studying, they can kind of compartmentalize these little pieces of content and know where they fit and which the sequence they are. And they're good. They're DIY people. They're going to figure it out. You and I can figure that stuff out too on certain things. But for the rest, it's like, oh my gosh, this is like so much overwhelm. And then they never get started. And then a year later, 2 years later, they're like, hey, I wish I would have started that business. I wish I would have created that community. And yeah, I just need a roadmap. That's what they're looking for, is the process of implementation, and then also the access. Because if they get to watch your videos or hear your podcast or read your book, they're going to start to build a familiarity with you and go, hey, this is someone I actually want to know, and I think they can help me. So
Totally.
yeah, great marketing psychology lesson right there.
Well, and I just think you hit the nail on the head in that, people, they just want to fast track. Like
Yeah.
they just want to get the result that they're after in the shortest time frame possible. And so they could spend hours, like I was like a dummy in the beginning, trying to watch all these tutorials and figure it out. But the majority of people, they don't want to spend the time sifting through and sorting through all that. They just want to be told, okay, take this step, take that step, and then you'll get that result. And that is like a breath of fresh air when you can just cut through all the noise and just give people a clear-cut plan. And that's why memberships are not only, working well, they're thriving. Like, dude, in the last year, I ream off a whole bunch of people in all kinds of markets that have crossed the $1 million milestone in such a short period of time. Like, I think of Bonnie Snowden. So she's an artist. She loves drawing realistic animals with colored pencils.
Okay.
And it would be 3 years ago now, she started her membership from zero. And in 2 years, crossed the $1 million milestone. And then in the last year, it's now a $2.5 million a year membership. Dude, she's teaching people how to draw realistic animals with colored pencils. Like, it's super specific. And
Very.
so I just share this because, like, memberships are thriving because there is so much noise, there is so much content, and the more and more that gets created, the more overwhelm it creates. And that increases the demand for people to just cut through the clutter and just give people what they need, which is that straight path.
There's a reason that people hire coaches like myself and yourself. And the marketing that we would put out there would talk about the transformation. We would talk about,
Mm,
hey, here's where you're at, here's where you want to be, and here's the thing in the middle. So it's a psychology, but the real reason, which doesn't sound good on marketing, is mistake avoidance. They hire us for mistake avoidance, and
mm,
you can't really market that phrase. It just doesn't sound appealing. Like, hey, hire me for mistake avoidance. But that's the reality, because the
yep.
shortcut is just, hey, we have learned these lessons. We want to save you thousands of tens of thousands of dollars and a lot of your time. And like you talked about building a studio, like you could have ordered all kinds of crap and it wouldn't have worked. And you would have wasted a lot of time and money, spent a lot of time returning things. And it's annoying. So mistake
Yeah.
avoidance.
And that's just it. People value their time more today than ever before. And there's always, as you said, there's always going to be people, like I think of my buddy Clay. He will watch, 5 million YouTube videos to figure it out himself. Like, and
Yeah.
he's that kind of guy. He's a DIY kind of guy.
Yeah.
But there's a whole lot of people like myself who just don't have the patience to figure everything out. I just want the clear path. Just show me what steps to take and I'll take them, because I just don't want to deal with all the stuff. I just want to get the result.
So when someone's now getting on board, they're hearing this conversation, they're thinking about maybe I could do this. I know that you have a multi-step process on how to analyze your ideas to kind of whittle it down to the one that matters. You gave
Yeah.
some good examples with your previous examples there with very specific things. What is your process, your framework about how to come up with the right idea for yourself?
Yeah, well, there's definitely some very easy ways to validate whether an idea is a good one or not. So the first thing that I look for is, can you solve an ongoing problem? So if the answer to that is yes, then that's a green light, thumbs up, move forward. So I'll give you some examples. So like weight loss, great example.
Yeah.
Somebody's not going to go from being overweight to their ideal weight like that. It takes time to solve that problem. That's what makes it great for a membership. And so Victoria Black and Jen Davidson over in Australia, they have a membership site called Super Fast Diet. It helps women lose weight, and it is tremendously successful because it's solving an ongoing problem. Another example of an ongoing problem would be like training your dog. So yesterday in our office, actually, we allow our team to bring their dogs in, and Megan, she brought her dog in for the first time. Gorgeous German Shepherd dog. But I don't know what it was about the office, but this poor dog just was like whining and moaning and barking, and poor Megan, she's like kind of getting all flustered and embarrassed, and we're on like conference calls, and the dog is barking, and she's just like, please don't fire. We're like, we're not gonna fire you, but like she was just embarrassed by the whole thing. And so dog training is again one of those situations where you're not gonna go from a puppy that's wildly out of control to the perfect puppy like that. It takes time to solve that problem. So these are all good examples. And so if you're in a market where you're helping solve an ongoing problem, that is green light, thumbs up forward. That's number one. Okay, so the second one, number two, is can you teach a skill? So similarly, learning a skill and mastering a skill, it takes time. You don't go from not knowing how to paint to becoming the next Picasso like that.
Yeah.
Or you don't go from not knowing how to run a business to becoming this, incredibly savvy business owner like that. It takes time. And P.S., even myself, I've been in business for myself for 23 years. I've been online for 21 of those years. And even now, I am still consuming content, constantly learning because markets are changing. Things are always,
Yeah.
we've always got to adapt. And so there's never like a finish line. Like, I've mastered business. I don't need to learn anything more ever again. Like nobody ever says that.
No.
So when it comes to skill development, what we got to realize is that if you're teaching somebody a skill, that what we're doing is we're helping them go deeper and deeper in their mastery of that skill. Whether it's learning how to paint, whether it's learning how to craft, whether it's learning how to garden, whether it's learning how to run a business, whether it's raising kids, like there's always different levels of mastery. And so if you're teaching a skill of any kind, that's a green light, thumbs up, move forward. And then the third is convenience. Like, can you make someone's life easier, or can you make something complex simple? So I'll give you some examples here. My wife was a teacher for 10 years. So I watched and saw firsthand that her weekends and evenings would get swallowed up all the time lesson planning. She's planning out the lessons of what she's going to teach in the classroom. So there's been a whole lot of people in our community who have launched really successful memberships by providing teachers lesson plans. Like I think of Anna DiGilio, tremendously successful business, multi-million-dollar a year membership, providing grade 2 teachers lesson plans for helping their kids read. Or I think of Caitlin and Jessica, another multi-million-dollar membership in the teaching space, providing middle school teachers lesson plans. Or I think of Julie Soul, $1 million plus membership, thousands of members. She's providing homeschooling parents and educators art lesson plans. Cool. And my point is that the teachers don't have to think about what they're going to share in the classroom. They can join a membership and have the convenience of those lesson plans handed to them. And now they can focus more of their attention and time on the kids in the classroom and actually helping them. And so whether it's lesson plans or templates, like I think of Andrew Crouch over in Australia, very successful membership providing Facebook ad templates for realtors. And so the real estate agent, they don't have to worry about like what they're going to say in the ad. They just take, Andrew's templates, tweak it a little bit, and boom, they are off to the races. And PS, like it's a more expensive membership. It's like $350 a month. But if a real estate agent only sells one house the entire year as a result of those ads, it's paid for itself, right? So there's lots of examples of whether it's lesson plans or scripts or templates where you're just making someone's life easier. We also have Nicole Melton is in this category. She has a membership site providing social media templates for people in the beauty industry. And so, again, they don't have to worry about what to put on social. They can just take her templates, make a few tweaks, and the workload is done for them. So, if you can, number one, solve an ongoing problem, number two, teach a skill, or number three, create convenience for somebody, that's green light, thumbs up, move forward. And the big thing on that is you don't need all three of those. You just need to say yes to one of those,
Wow.
and you're in a great market to move forward.
You know what I liked about all the skills that you just talked about is they weren't things necessarily that created wealth because of the skill for the individual.
Mm,
It was just a skill or something that was interesting that they knew other people would want to understand because they made their money by building the membership and scaling it, so they're making the money later on. So I think a lot of times people get held up, especially the side hustle people that want to start a business. They're really focused on trying to make the maximum amount of money with the skill. So they look at their portfolio of skills and they go, this one has the most potential to make the most money for that skill.
right.
Like you just described a bunch of things that didn't really make a lot of money. Like you talk about drawing animals with colored pencils. Like
Yeah.
unless you're the best of the best of the world, you're probably not making a lot of money doing that. But she knows that there's thousands of people that do want to understand that are willing to pay for that.
Yeah, it's a really great point. I mean, or, in her case, she definitely, when she began that membership, was getting paid, to be a commissioned artist,
Yeah.
but she's trading her time for money. And
Yes.
so it comes back to what we talked about earlier. Like, great skill set, but like terrible business model. Like, we never want to be exchanging our time for money. So she loves that. And amazing that she was able to build a business being able to be a commissioned artist. But there's a ceiling in terms of how much she could make doing that because she's trading time for money. Now with the membership, there's no ceiling. And PS, she's also now impacting thousands of more people
Yeah.
than she ever could with when she was trading her time for money. So more money, more impact. It's like the double win.
So when you're a leader of one of these membership communities, what do you see as like the expectations? Like, are you having to create content all the time? Are you having to have weekly meetings? Or like I know that there's a lot of variation, but what do you see as like a through line? Like what is the thing that most people are looking for?
Well, here's the good news. The number one reason that people cancel from a membership is overwhelm.
It's
And
too
the
much. You're
reason
flooding me.
is too much.
Yeah.
And this is a huge mistake that a lot of people make when it comes to memberships is thinking that, oh, the more content I create, the more value I'm going to create. And that's just not true. Like, in the membership world, it's not about more content equals more value. It's about the speed of implementation and the speed to result that
Mm.
matters. And so why that's good news for us is that nobody wants to be on a content treadmill. Like, I don't want that for you, for anybody watching and
Yeah.
listening. I don't want that for myself. Like, that's not the business that we want to get into. And the good news is your people don't want it either. And so when it comes to a membership, that's why I was saying it is so much more advantageous to launch the membership earlier than you expect so that you can start working with a group of people. And I'll share an example of why. So, Paul Evans is a great example. He had a membership site for youth pastors, and he had a whole lot of members, and he was providing a ton of different content. He was providing like like masterclass type videos. He had a community component. He was providing all kinds of resources. He was providing different templates, like tons of stuff.
Yeah.
And then he sent a message to his community, and it was a brilliant question. He said, if we were to get rid of everything in the membership, what's the one thing that you would want us to keep? And why that's such a brilliant question is because it immediately focuses people on like what is most important about the membership to them. And so he got the results back, and it was an overwhelming majority of people said the exact same thing. And that was every week he provided a PowerPoint template, which was a sermon on this template. So they could
They
just
they could
tweak
just
it.
use it and free up their time.
Exactly. And what he realized was that the majority of youth pastors, they are like part-time pastors. So they have a full-time job during the week, and then they're pastoring on the weekend. So they don't have time to like go and prepare something all week long. So the membership was a tremendous asset to them just for that one thing. So he got rid of everything. He got rid of the community. He got rid of all the other deliverables, and he just kept that one PowerPoint presentation, saving himself about 75% of the work. And he didn't see retention drop. In fact, he saw it increase because people had a focus of what is most valuable, and they were using it more. And so I share that because so much of a membership is about learning about your people and how to best serve them. So yes, we're trying to help them towards some objective and goal and transformation, but nobody's going to just jump there. So we want to break that journey down into different stages. This is something I call a success path. I talk about it in my book, Predictable Profits. You break that journey down, and that helps create focus for people. Like, I'm at this stage, so this is what I should focus on. Forget everything else. I don't need to learn any of that. I just need to focus on these few things, and that'll lead me to the next stage and the next stage. And so our goal as a membership site owner is to learn, is to break down that journey, and then to learn how we can best serve people at each stage and help create focus for them. And so it's much more about many times facilitating than it is creating a whole bunch of content. And so it's a misunderstanding a lot of the time when it comes to memberships, thinking that the more content a membership has, the more valuable it is. It's just not true in the membership world.
That's good to know. It kind of takes the pressure off of you to think that you have to be a performer, right?
Totally.
I
Yeah.
I'm just here to create and teach you an objective. Like we're trying to get to a goal here.
Yeah, exactly. It's just really about obsessing over your people and like where are they getting stuck. That's the big obsession as a membership site owner. It's less about like being on a content treadmill, more about just obsessing over your people and trying to help them, make that next step.
Tech question. What are your favorite apps that you guys recommend for starting these communities?
Well, I'm going to give you one, but I'm incredibly biased in
Good.
saying it because
It's got to be your favorite for a reason.
well, I'm incredibly biased because it's our solution that we created. It's called membership.io.
Perfect.
And but the reason I'm obsessed about it and super biased is because we designed it specifically to take all the best practices that I've learned after nearly 2 decades, specifically helping people with memberships. And we have incorporated that into the solution. And really we focus on 2 main things. Number 1 is streamlining the experience for you as a business owner. So like we look for ways in which we can, save you time and create a great experience. So, perfect example, we're on StreamYard right now. If we were doing a broadcast on, different platforms like this or Zoom as an example, like we have integrations. So the moment that you hang up, this video would get sent to your membership. And the moment it gets sent to the membership, it's automatically transcribed. It's automatically created an audio version. It's automatically searchable, which means like the whole thing, every word that I'm saying, you're saying is completely searchable. So if I were to say like purple rabbit, if somebody typed in purple rabbit, it would bring us to the moment in the video where I'm
Cool.
talking about purple rabbit.
So you got some AI technology in there.
AI technology and all of that's automatic. And so like as a business owner, you're not fiddling with the old school way of like downloading, then uploading it, and getting
Cropping
it
it
transcribed.
off and
Yeah, exactly.
putting it in your
Adding
Dropbox, taking it out of your Dropbox, putting it on your video editor. Like, yeah, it's a huge
you've been here before.
sequence. Yeah. Yeah. You're giving me
and
PTSD again, like all these things.
Exactly. And so like that's the stuff that like is frustrating as a business owner is like when you're in the weeds of all the things. So that's our number 1 obsession is like streamlining that experience for you as the business owner. That's number 1. And then number 2 is creating an amazing experience for your people that drives consumption of your content. Because if people don't consume the content, they won't get value and they won't get results and they'll leave. So the whole goal for you and I in the membership game, it's really simple. We just got to keep our members happy and experiencing progress. And if we do that, they will stay. Like in all the years I've been doing this, I have never heard of anybody leaving a membership because they've experienced too much success. Like
No,
nobody leaves,
no.
you know? So
Well,
as
even
long as we
the best communities, if people do get success in that community, they tend to stay in the community because they become more like the mentors and the leaders of those communities.
totally, yeah,
Mhm,
and there's, like, just tremendous value, and it comes back to something we talked about earlier. Even when they achieve tremendous success,
mhm.
we're never finished learning and going
That's
deeper in
right.
our level of mastery. It's like the person who earns their black belt in karate.
Yeah.
Like, they don't stop
No.
practicing the fundamentals, right? Like,
Right,
they
right.
go deeper and deeper in that level of mastery, and that's what makes a membership so great. So, at the end of the day, like, I'm obsessed about membership.io because it makes our lives as membership owners a heck of a lot easier. And it's specifically designed to drive consumption and help our people get results.
Well, I love it. You've got your very first book coming out on February 11th called Predictable Profits. Subtitles Transform Your Business from One-Off Sales to Recurring Revenue with Memberships and Subscriptions.
Yeah.
And that is this episode will drop on February 12th next week. So if you're listening to this, the book came out yesterday.
Yeah, I'm really, really pumped and excited about this. It's like nearly 2 decades of experience squeezed into 250 pages. And it is everything that I have learned about what works when it comes to growing a profitable membership. And it is loaded with stories and examples. Like we have hundreds in this book alone
Mhm.
of examples and stories. And then I really obsessed over the reading experience. Like all the chapters are super short, so like you can fly through them. And of course, I had a little bit of a point of contention with my publisher because I also love like putting pictures in, and my publisher's like, Stu, you got a few too many pictures. We need to hold back a little bit. But I just love it because I love visuals that bring the book to life. Like this is what we were talking about earlier, how the membership becomes the bridge between where they are and where they want to be. And so, anyways, point blank, this book is something that people will reference over and over again when it comes to launching a membership. And I'm passionate about this, Tony, because survey after survey, the number one stress of all business owners, doesn't matter what industry, is finances. Like, where are the sales going to come from? And this book eliminates that stress because with a membership and subscription, you're not worried about where the sales are going to come from. At the beginning of each month, you're building on the month prior and you're going to get paid at the beginning of every month, no matter if you do anything new or not. That's the magic of memberships. And I just want to eliminate that stress for so many business owners. And that's why I wrote the book. And that's why I can't wait to get it in the hands of as many people as possible.
Well, guys, I've pre-ordered my copy, so I look forward to it arriving next week, and it's on Amazon. So go check it out. Predictable Profits by Stu McLaren. Stu, any final words while we wrap here?
I'm excited, for all business owners everywhere. I mean, we live in this incredibly unique time right now where we can reach people worldwide. We can take the things that we're passionate about, our expertise, and we can share it in a way that creates tremendous leverage where we can reach far more people and have far greater impact. And at the same time, create a business that eliminates stress that we feel as business owners and create that predictable, stable, recurring revenue. And so I just want to encourage everybody, no matter what type of business you've got, whether it's a product based business, a service based business, knowledge based business, or community based business, I'll show you how to turn that into recurring revenue in the book Predictable Profits. Definitely go get a copy. If you're an auditory person, I recorded in studio the audio version as well. So you can find that on Audible. Heck, what I would do is I'd buy the audio, listen to me, and read it at the same time. You'll double your
That's a
income.
hack. That's actually a brain hack. They said if you could do both of those at the same time, it's double compounding what you're learning.
Totally, totally. And I just want to encourage everybody to keep me posted on your progress. You can always reach me directly on Instagram. That's the best way. It's just my name. And yeah, keep me posted on your progress. But thank you so much for having me here today.
All right, guys, if you got something from this episode, we'd both appreciate you sharing it because that's how these shows grow. We don't have any sponsors. And so tag us in your social medias. If you got a question, you can always reach out to Stu or myself through our various channels. We're both active on Instagram, Facebook, and all the major platforms. But yeah, we'd love to see you sharing these episodes and getting the word out there, because guarantee you know some friends and family that have ideas that they could teach the world, that they need to create their membership for themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks.